Title: Deep Work by Cal Newport. Stop being busy. Start being valuable. The average knowledge worker checks email every 6 minutes. We call this being responsive. Cal Newport calls it the slow destruction of our most valuable economic skill. In his book, Deep Work: Rules for Focused Success in a Distracted World, Newport makes a case that should concern every professional. In an economy built on knowledge, the ability to focus without distraction is becoming rare. And rare skills are valuable skills. This is your complete breakdown of Deep Work. Let's start with who wrote it and why that matters. Cal Newport is a computer science professor at Georgetown University. That gives this book an unusual credibility. He is not a productivity guru selling a lifestyle. He is an academic studying his own profession, where deep, sustained thinking is the entire job. Newport's central argument is simple to state and hard to practice. Deep work is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. Shallow work is the logistical noise. Emails, meetings, status updates. Work that feels productive but creates very little real value. His claim is this: deep work is becoming both rarer and more valuable at the same time. And that combination, scarcity plus value, is exactly what creates competitive advantage for individuals and for companies. Now let's talk about the core formula that the entire book is built around. High-quality work produced equals time spent, multiplied by intensity of focus. That's it. That's the equation. But it explains something most people never notice. Two people can work the exact same 8-hour day and produce wildly different results. One spends those hours fragmented, email, Slack, a phone buzzing every few minutes. The other protects blocks of completely uninterrupted time for their hardest thinking. The math here is not just symbolic, it's literal. Newport cites research suggesting it can take over 20 minutes to fully re-engage with a task after a single interruption. Now multiply that by the dozens of interruptions most professionals experience in a single workday. Most people are operating at a fraction of their actual cognitive capacity, and they don't even realize it. There's a name for this phenomenon. Newport calls it attention residue. Part of your mind stays stuck on the previous task, even after you've physically moved on to the next one. So even when you think you've switched tasks, you haven't fully switched. A piece of your focus is still back there, in the inbox you just closed. So if deep work is this valuable, why is it disappearing from modern workplaces? Newport has an answer for that too. He calls it the metric black hole. Here's the problem. Most knowledge work has no easy way to measure whether a specific action is actually productive. You can't put a clean number on good thinking. Because we can't measure it directly, organizations default to a proxy instead. Visible busyness, replying fast, attending every meeting, being constantly available, constantly online, constantly on. This creates what Newport calls the principle of least resistance. In the absence of clear feedback, professionals gravitate toward whatever behavior is easiest in the moment. Checking email feels productive and is effortless. Sitting with a hard problem for 90 minutes is mentally exhausting and produces no immediate feedback. So, naturally, most people choose the path of least resistance. The result is a paradox worth sitting with. The people who look the busiest are often producing the least lasting value, and the people doing quiet, focused work often go unrewarded, simply because their effort is invisible to everyone around them. Now let's move from the diagnosis to the prescription. This is the part of the book most people actually came for. Newport offers 4 rules for cultivating deep work. Rule number 1. Work deeply. Treat focus as a skill to be trained, not a trait you either have or don't have. Newport recommends choosing a depth philosophy that fits your actual life and constraints. There's the monastic approach, total isolation from shallow obligations, which works for a small number of people in very specific roles. There's the bimodal approach, splitting your time clearly between deep periods and shallow periods, maybe by day, maybe by season. And there's the simplest version for most people, the rhythmic approach. Ritualize a daily deep work block. Same time, same place, every single day, until it becomes automatic. Rule number 2. Embrace boredom. This one is counterintuitive, but it might be the most important rule in the entire book. If you only practice focus when you're already trying to work, you have never actually trained the underlying skill. Newport argues that constantly relieving boredom with your phone, the second you're standing in line, the second a meeting gets a little slow, trains your brain to expect novelty on demand. And that expectation makes sustained concentration progressively harder, even during the moments when you're actually trying to focus. Rule number 3. Quit social media. Not necessarily forever. Newport isn't telling you to delete every app and disappear. Instead, he proposes what he calls the craftsman approach to choosing tools. Adopt a technology only if its positive impacts substantially outweigh its negative impacts. Not because everyone else is using it. Not because you'll feel left out. Evaluate the tool on its actual value to your actual goals. And rule number 4. Drain the shallows. Deliberately limit the time available for shallow work. Newport suggests scheduling every single hour of your workday in advance. Batching email into 2 or 3 fixed windows instead of checking continuously throughout the day. And becoming a little harder to reach. Not out of arrogance, but as a structural decision to protect your most valuable hours from constant interruption. Now, let's talk about what this means in a real business context. For leaders and for teams, not just individuals. The implication is direct. Organizations that default to constant availability, open plan offices, instant reply culture, back-to-back meetings scheduled with zero white space, may be optimizing for the appearance of collaboration, at the expense of the work that actually moves the business forward. To be clear, Newport is not arguing against communication or teamwork. He's arguing for intentional structure. Protect the blocks of time where the hardest thinking happens. Treat shallow coordination work as necessary, but secondary, not the default mode of the entire day. The professionals who master this, who can sit with a genuinely hard problem for 90 uninterrupted minutes, are positioned to produce work that is very difficult for a distracted competitor to ever replicate. That's the competitive edge. Not working more hours, working with more depth in the hours you already have. Now, in fairness, let's look at this critically for a moment, because no book is perfect. Critics of deep work point out that Newport's prescriptions are easier to follow in academia than in many corporate roles, where availability and rapid response genuinely are the job. If you work in customer support, in sales, or in people management, you can't simply disappear for 4-hour blocks. Your job requires you to be reachable. So the more practical takeaway for most professionals isn't total isolation. It's the underlying principle. Be deliberate about when you are reachable, and protect at least some portion of your day, even if it's just 60 or 90 minutes, for work that genuinely requires real concentration. So let's bring this all together. Deep Work isn't really a book about productivity hacks or time management tricks. It's a book about what kind of professional you want to be, in an economy that increasingly rewards rare, valuable skills, and increasingly tempts everyone toward shallow, easily replaceable busyness. Newport's challenge to the reader is simple. Stop measuring your day by how responsive you were. Start measuring it by what you actually built. If this summary was useful to you, that's it. That's the whole framework. Now go protect your next 90 minutes.